Thanks, Peg. And if you did read the interview, it was very strange that when you paused, there was a dog barking in the background, because I talk about all the animals in my book, so that was very strange too. I'm going to read two stories for you tonight. The first is a short, kind of 1-minute appetizer of a story for you. It's called Pie Inside. Margaret was angry again. Bob could hear her banging pots and pans, slamming cupboards the way she did when she wasn't in a forgiving mood. He snuck out the back, went for a long walk up in the hills. The clouds converged and then rolled away, dark and dramatic, like an opera. Bob crept along until the first tiny star peered down at him, suspicious. By the time he got home, the place was silent. Bob stood on the front porch. The automatic light clicked on, a spotlight. His show was about to begin, but he'd forgotten his lines. Through the window, he could see the pie inside on the table. Not an effort of love, but a grudging nudge toward it. He could see the pie. He opened the door, tiptoed in. Poor Bob. The second story is called Adjustment. I love beetles, Katie said, pushing the eggs around on her plate. The Beatles or Beatles, Jerry asked, pantomiming a guitar and then skittering his fingers. You mean the band or little tank bugs? He'd made the breakfast, the eggs and toast, and wondered at his skill as Katie seemed to only play with her eggs, not eat them. The toast seemed the wrong color, too. He gently touched her forearm, made eye contact. The bugs, she said cautiously. Katie didn't want him to judge her on this beautiful morning. The greasy smell of singed butter still hung in the air of the small Eden kitchen, but the window was open a crack to let in the fresh spring breeze. She reached out a bare toe to rub his calf through his jeans. When Katie had first looked at apartments in Chicago, her first life away from home, she'd never heard the term Eden kitchen before, having lived in a house her whole life with a family who got jobs and then bought their own homes without looking through ads in a newspaper, without feverishly checking Craigslist. Eden kitchen had seemed so urban and romantic. Katie wanted an Eden kitchen, and then she wanted to call it that, mention it to others over dinner, over wine. I think they're cool too, Jerry nodded. Sure, he said. He had other things on his mind, of course. Sex again, maybe, after breakfast. He'd like to watch the game today, too. The main goal was to leave her apartment without seeming callous. His old girlfriend, Kira, had called him callous when they'd broken up a year before, so now he tried to work around callous behavior. Tried to be the kind of guy he imagined his ex-girlfriend would have stayed with, loved. Katie seemed easier to please, and so he thought it would be good practice being with her a few times, learning not to be callous, and also trying out patience. Katie had moved to Chicago after her ex-boyfriend David had dumped her because she was needy. She wanted to demonstrate her unneediness by moving to a city where she knew no one and then making it to the point that somehow her picture would be published in the newspaper for David to see and wonder over. This was all sometime in the future. For now, she had a cozy apartment. Katie had a job that wasn't as bad as other people's jobs, although adjusting insurance claims had made her cautious in a way that seemed permanent. Icy sidewalks, faulty window casings, sinkholes. She'd never considered sinkholes. But still, she met Jerry, and he had seemed nice at the company cookout, even if he randomly flexed his biceps. He seemed cautious, too, about some things that he wouldn't or didn't want to talk about, but she thought those things prompted him to make eggs for her, to smile and cup her hand in his briefly as they walked back to her place the night before. Do you want to go for a long walk today? Katie asked. She pushed her hair behind her ears, looked at him expectantly. Jerry's face clouded a little. He grabbed both plates and carefully rinsed them, letting the pasty butter smooth itself down the sink. What? He asked. A walk. I thought it might be nice by the water, Carrie said. She smiled at him. She tapped her juice glass, tapped the tabletop. Suddenly she sang a few bars of a song she'd heard on the radio the previous afternoon, spontaneous. She felt almost normal for a moment, not pretending at all, almost like she was in a house with her family, having a conversation and just saying whatever came into her head. Jerry turned off the water. He made sure to make eye contact with Katie. You have a beautiful singing voice, he said. Katie reddened a bit around the neck. She didn't want to be embarrassed, but she couldn't stop it. She imagined her vocal cords stretching. She pictured herself on a stage, a folk music star, writing songs and playing the guitar. Maybe not a star, but a local sensation. Successful enough to have a short article about her appear in the alt-weekly newspaper with a photo. She'd played the clarinet in high school band. Sure, she could learn the guitar. Why not? Katie walked to the big window in the living room. The day unfolded below her. Busy streets, filtered sun, a life in which she played a part. Storefronts and taxi cabs, dog walkers, and there she stood in her flannel robe. She felt young, could feel the lack of experience and age flowing within her. Some days she could sense the envy coming from others who'd already lived through these years. When Jerry cleared his throat and started his sentence, which had something to do with unfortunately and a game and it being nice to see her again, she actually didn't hear him, caught up in her romantic revelry. She heard him the second time, though, and realized he wanted to go. He wanted to head out into his real life, which was probably filled with a variety of women he tried to compliment and make blush. Katie was fine with him watching the game, she said. Of course, she said. She nodded and continued to look out on the world, out on her future. I'll go for a walk by myself, she said. No biggie. I don't need anything from you. Jerry bustled with getting his things together a little too quickly, he realized, but if he hurried, he might make it in time for the tailgate. Well, I mean, I want to walk with you, he said. You don't have to not need me. That's kind of harsh. He couldn't make eye contact because she was facing the wrong way. Katie, he said. She didn't turn toward him. Thank you and have a wonderful day, she said to the window. Jerry checked the time on his cell phone. Katie's hair hugged her narrow shoulders and curled across her back. He opened his mouth to say something and instead flexed his biceps. I don't like bugs, he said. He shut the apartment door on its squeaky hinge, shuffled down the musty carpeted hallway. Jerry thought she might cry after he left. They always cried. That's the part he didn't understand. But Katie didn't cry. As Jerry shut the door and she heard him make sure the latch had caught, she wondered about the chance of him slipping on the stairs on his way down, of him being hit by a bicycle messenger, of his heart and her heart being too broken to break. Thank you.